Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Samsung 960 Pro. Now these are new M.2 drives that are just about to be released, although things have been wittering around for a little while. They're available in a 512GB version. They're available in a 1TB version, and this in an M.2 drive that's only 80mm long, so 2280. This is 2TB. In an M.2 drive, I can't express. I know you've been able to get other ones for a little while from Samsung as well, because they've literally been pushing the solid state drive market, ploughing forward. And to be honest with you, they've really been the only people recently that have actually properly been given Intel harassment. So yeah, this 960 Pro M.2, 2TB. Is it any good? Well, let's get in, have a look, and we'll talk to you about all the performance. But be warned, this is a Tiny Tom Logan review on OC3D TV. So yeah, I am going to talk about the results, and I'm going to assume that if you're thinking about buying this, which is why I'm hoping you'd be here watching it. I know some people just like to sit and watch because they want to know about the latest tech. But not all of us are going to get a chance to have a play with one of these before actually having to spend out the £1,250 that they're asking for it. So with that in mind, I'm going to go into a fair bit of depth to try and help you decide whether this is worth what could be to some people, practically or even a month's wages. It's an awful lot of money. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to get in and we're going to have a look. So the box, it's actually pretty simple. You can see it's about the sort of size of my hand. It's quite understated, just got the red strip on it. 960 Pro M.2, NVMe SSD. It's not a great deal, to shout about. Other than that, 2TB box at the top. And when we get inside as well, there's also, there's no fan parade, there's no hurrah. It's just there. And when we take the installation guide and the warranty statement, there is a little bit of foam on the back of it to hold the solid state drive in place, but again, no big hurrah. Now, when we actually have a look, one thing I can tell you is up this end, this is a Samsung Polaris controller, and then down here, what we can see is there are 4 chips, although they call this for landing. It's a weird terminology, but anyway. So the chips under this, it's the Samsung VNAND, and this is the 3D stacked NAND. And what they can do with the stacks is they can put up to 16 layers on. Now I've looked in the documentation that I got from Samsung about this, and it doesn't actually say how many layers these chips have got. But if we assume that it's up to 16 and it's 16, we know it's 2TB, so 2048, whatever it works out as, divided by 4, you then come down to 512 gig per chip, which is correct. So 512 gig per stick, and then you divide that by 16, gives us 32GB per layer, and then they layer them up. Now, when we've played with the VNAND stuff before, because we have had several varieties of it, we didn't see any astronomical jumps forward from the previous generation and the way they were doing it. With this, it's a little bit different now, as I'll show you in the performance results. They're actually really consistent results as well, which is something else that I will talk to you about. But it's PCI Express 3, and it needs 4 lanes. Now, one of the things that we can say is you do need an M.2 slot, although you can get an add-in card like this to be able to add it into your system if you're retrofitting it to a motherboard that hasn't got M.2. I have tested both, so I will talk to you about that again in more detail. We really need to go on to kind of performance results and stuff now. There is a few, there's a fair bit of it, and I'll try and cover as much as I can. Okay, so first things first, and I'm going to start with temperature, because there was always a lot of chit chat around with performance with the drives getting a little bit too hot in the past, and if you were to really stress them for a continuous amount of time, you could get them to, for want of a better term, start throttling, where the performance drops a little bit. Well, what they have done with the 960s, it's now got an extra layer of copper in it, and that's meant to help distribute the heat a little bit more and bring the temperatures down. They do say in the blurb that they give you that 70 degrees is its upper operating temperature. They actually say it's from 0 to 70 degrees. Now, when I was testing this, I've actually gone to the stress of testing them in multiple systems and in multiple scenarios as well. Like I have tested it in an open air M.2 Z170 system. I've also then dropped it into the Asus Maximus 8 Formula, which has a cover over the top of it, so it's almost like insulating it. So I tested it on that as well, and then I also tested it with this, which is an add-in card, so that it's actually ends up being a little bit more open air, and it's, you know, it's further away from the graphics card, it's shielded from the graphics card. But anyway, so I have tested all those scenarios to try and literally, you know, stress it to within an inch of its life. And we were doing crystal disk mark runs over and over again. There was it was the QDEP 16 was the one that was bringing us up to our maximum temperature. So I was literally running that, sitting there and running it over and over again. We tried all sorts of different things to bring the temperature up. The most that I got was on the Asus Formula, and that was 61 degrees. And I have to admit, that was after me. I got bored of keep clicking the benchmarks, you know, to run them over and over again. And we were literally dragging stuff off my server to, you know, absolutely pummel it. My server, we're testing some, you know, multiple gigabit lines and stuff at the moment. So although it wasn't absolutely pummeling it, but there's very little, you know, drive wise that can come close to this. But we were doing lots of read and writes, and anyway, so 61 degrees maximum on the Maximus with the cover on. With it on the board, it was with a particularly hot graphics card, I might add, because that was another thing I was doing. I was kind of assuming that it was going to be absolutely getting battered with games. It dropped down to just below 60, and then with this, the open one, it was 57. And it took me hours just to do the temperature testing on this, so I deserve a pat on the back. One thing I would say as well, right from the beginning, is if you do buy one of these, and you go on and suddenly you're seeing some of your results aren't quite right. When we first got hold of it, the drivers were a bit not brilliant, but today, as of today, which is the reason why I've been hurriedly trying to get it sorted, Samsung slipped me a new driver, which is going to be going live on the website next week. Today is the 11th of the 11th, so it's the 11th of November. Next week, I think it's the 15th, it's going to go live to the public, and it is the exact driver that's going to go live to the public as well. But it made a massive difference. So one thing I would say is, if you're seeing particularly your read speeds don't consistently seem correct, especially in the Anvil benchmark, I would say make sure that you've got at least the Samsung NVMe driver, because there are workarounds with the Intel one and stuff, but the Samsung one literally sorted everything out for me. The other thing that I would say is I've tested this on X99 and Z170 with this, and Z170 direct on the board as well. So one of the things I would say is, again, it can be very reliant on your drivers, but also the BIOS as well. Because with the Maximus 8, I did need to change the BIOS, do a big driver sweep, go in, properly get things ripped off, almost getting back to a fresh installation, do all my drivers again, get the Samsung driver on again, to be able to get the performance that I was expecting. Because when I first put it in with this and on the board, I wasn't even getting 2000 megabits a second, which I'll show you in a minute is quite down to what it should have been. So, and I know I get my bits and my bytes around the wrong way, and I should be getting them right by now, but you will understand when I say 2000 and 3000, you'll know what I'm on about. We're on about the big anyway. So I did a lot of messing around, and like I said, we did have some driver problems. X99, I will say, was a smidgen behind Z170, amazingly, and but with Z170, once we got the driver sorted out, it didn't matter whether it was on this or in the board, They were both lightning fast. And it's the Z170 results that I'm going to be showing you here today, because all of our M.2 results have been done in the same way. So it would be unfair to start using the X99 stuff. But anyway, like I said, X99 was just slightly behind. But I do think that, you know, that could have a lot to do with chipset drivers, and this is why it's always a good idea for you to keep up to date with your drivers. I actually wish that we could cancel the Windows 10 messing around with drivers and stuff a lot of the time, to be fair. But, so, performance. One of the things I will do is we've got lots of graphs, but please go and take a look on the OC3D website, because you can see the full breakdown with them there. You'll be able to get a better idea of the performance difference. But in all honesty, with every single one of the results I've got to show you, it's at the top, quite clearly at the top. So that's where we're going to be heading. So I'll flash the graph up, and then we'll zoom in on the bits that actually matter. I'll try and explain a few things as well, because benchmarks are a funny old thing, where difference between new ones and old ones, it's like Crystal Disk Mark. We actually run two versions of that, an archaic version and the new version. Yes, but anyway, right, Atto, top of the graph, like I said, absolute boom smash. So the long and short of it there is, if you have a look, you've got a peak there of 3,420.9 at the top, which was just like, okay, yeah, that's a little bit quick then. If we move on to Crystal Disk Mark, we have two graphs of Crystal Disk Mark. Don't forget, you can pause if you want to see these. Again, we're at the top. But this first Crystal Disk Mark that I'll show you, or the first two I'll say, you can see that they're separated by read and write. And this is one of the older versions of Crystal Disk Mark, like I said, that we're stuck with, because they actually changed completely the way that the tests were being done. So the results, some of them, they took one lot of results away entirely, and then they replaced it with some other stuff. But anyway, so with the read and writes here, you can see that on the read, it was 2,987 as a peak. And then we've got 2,122 as a peak on the right. So that was the old one. But then when we go to the new one, which is the one that you can download now, which is V5, you can see that we made these graphs just to show you the new version today. So with this, you can see that we've got here 3,429 as a peak on the read, and then 2,166 as a peak on the right. With IOPS, and this is something I'll do with you verbally, but with IOPS, they do say that you can get 440k read and 360k write. And yes, I have got some notes down here in case you're wondering where my eyes are going. Our actual results for the read, we got 194k, and then actual results for the write with 341k. So the read result there, it doesn't feel right at the moment, considering what they say it should be. It's about half under. But with what we've been talking about with drivers so far, I would be very surprised if within the next month that doesn't get fixed. It could just be that Anvil's just not playing nice with it. But I have to tell you the results that I'm getting, and this is the way we get our results for IOPS, and have been for a while. So far, Anvil, it's not given me what I would expect, but with everything else, it pretty much did. Again, if you want to look at the details, you can go and have a look on the OC3D website, see how we broke it all down. So the long and short of it is, and I'm trying to whittle through, but the long and short of it is it any good? Well, for the money, you instantly think to yourself, flipping heck, you know, £1,250 is a lot of money. And the only thing that I've had that's come close would have been, in the days gone by, because it was quite a while ago, it was the Intel 750. So with the Intel 750, they did a 1.2 terabyte, which at the time of writing, when I did it, was £1,000, or just below it. I've looked today for a 1.2 terabyte drive, and it's still retailing new for £1,000, if not more. I think the exchange rate at the moment has firmly kind of rogered it, but it's still over £1,000 at all the big main e-tailers. So with that, I was quite like, whoa, that's dear when you consider that with this, you're almost getting a third more storage. And if you look in the results, it's quicker, significantly quicker as well. Don't forget, this is a 2 terabyte version. You could go and buy the 1 terabyte version, which I've not had a confirmed price about yet. But you could go and get the 1 terabyte version, which will be cheaper than the Intel, but considerably faster. So really it swings in roundabouts. Yes, this 2 terabyte version is eye-wateringly expensive, but when you consider it to the things that are close to it, yet not as fast, it actually starts to weirdly seem like it's quite good value. And for us, that is the reason why we gave it the OC3D Enthusiast Award, because at this present moment in time, it is the quickest drive on the planet, and yet it's not actually that big. I mean, the 750 was either a proper PCI Express add-in card, or it was a U.2 drive, which meant that you had to use a U.2 connector, and then the U.2 connectors themselves, they're horrible looking. So when you put them in, you know, big systems, they don't look that great, and you can only have one of them as well. This is just so simple. So many motherboards have got M.2 now, so that's not too much of a problem. If you do have to use an add-in card, then, you know, the 750 is an add-in card anyway, so it doesn't really matter. One thing I would say that with this though, if you're going to retrofit this into your rig, do remember that if you're using something older like a Z77 or something like that, the second that you plumb something like this into your motherboard, you are then going to be taking lanes away from your graphics card. Depending on your graphics card, it might not be too much of a problem, but I would run some 3D marks before and after. Although I would assume that if you've got £1,000 to buy something like this, then you're probably going to be on a fairly decent motherboard, graphics card, and CPU combo anyway. So the long and short of it is 2 terabytes in an M.2 with those kind of speeds. It didn't melt the skin off my fingers. It didn't explode. There's no plane warnings for it either. It was absolutely cracking. Seeing 3,400 plus gigabits a second, megabytes a second, I should say, megabytes a second on Crystal Dismark and Atto was just like, boom, my eyes were coming out like a cartoon. So really, the long and short of it is, if you are always seeking the absolute fastest thing to have in your system, whether you generally can feel it or not, because that would be the big thing. There's a lot of people out there now with either a very sensible head with their wallet locked up, or just haven't got a great deal of money going, but can you feel the difference? To be honest with you, no, you can't really feel the difference, but it's going to be at that moment in time when you just kind of sat there with a smug face because you know your rig is just daft. And this is one of those things that a lot of people do say to me about solid state drives and mechanicals, and I do hear it a lot. I can remember when a 1 terabyte solid state drive was, I can remember when a 1 terabyte disk drive was an awful lot of money. We were talking multiple hundreds of pounds. And now we've got something that's about the size of a rich tea biscuit finger with 2 terabytes pumping out. You know, I'm not even being funny. It wasn't that long ago I had solid state drives here that were 350 megasecond on the reads, and now we're up to something this small with 3,500 reads. It's awesome and I love it. And if you love hardware and all of that kind of stuff too, I know you will too. But don't forget, yes, it's 2 terabytes, but it's massive. It's one of those ones where you've kind of, all of a sudden, you've got a system drive that you don't need, almost might not even need to worry about having more drives in. But don't forget, they do smaller ones, which are going to be significantly cheaper, although I've not got prices for those yet. I just know what this is going to be. And I do know that they're going to be all going public. They're available for pre-order at the moment on Overclockers, but they are literally imminent. And I would honestly say that it's probably going to be worth asking your missus, mortgaging your gran, you know, I don't know, trading in a kidney or selling your kids to the devil, because if you've got a 1080 or 2 and you run an X99 or a 6700K and you need that next thing, Get a 2 terabyte one of those. But anyway, right, I've done enough. I'm in love with it. Yes, I am. I love it. I want it. I want it bad. Yes. I'm going to leave that with you. The long and short of it is, it's epic. It's severely put the Intel 750 stuff in the shade, and it's done it on a smaller format in stuff that's more widely available for everybody else. They've also brought it in. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. I love it. Do you love it? Let me know. I'd also love you, yes, you, no, stop, yeah, you, that one, yeah, you. Why don't you come and chat with us on the OC3D forums about it? The link is underneath. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with the OC3D Enthusiast award-winning Samsung 960 Pro M.2 drive that I am not going to let them have back. That's in my pocket. It's gone missing. The fairies have gone away with it. Out. Ding! Oh, it deserves 2. Ding!